So I'm going to share in the daytime, a bit unusual. In case you're wondering why I've never got a shirt on, it's because I'm always indoors and it's sweating in my flat, by the way. It reached like 40 degrees in my flat the other day, so much that it affected one of my fish that I keep. I had a pet snakehead. If you're a fish keeper, you'll understand what a snakehead fish is. And she was an Aranti maculata. So she's a subtropical species. And she's not really meant to be kept in temperatures above 26, maybe 28 at the highest, like a normal tropical fish, and she's meant to have low temperature months. So without even, regardless of chillers and ice bottles, you can imagine being in a room that's 40 degrees, it's blue in here as well. It took a toll on her, you know, and I lost her. So that's why I've never got a top on indoors. And also because I'm quite comfortable with no top on there. Never used to be. I've lost about 10 stone in weight, so that's why I never got a top on, you know, and because I can. But that leads me on to the topic of discussion I want to talk about, and it's basically about how to not abandon ourselves. Being a person who used to always self-abandon, but I want to understand others' perspectives, so I try to utilize my skills and knowledge and understanding of my own self-abandonment and how I process it to help others understand theirs, to help me understand those too that are going through the way they do. And that's all going to be linked into the way that I speak and what I talk about today, because a self-abandonment can really be conflicting. And for the initial stages, when you're initially doing it and you're not quite understanding that you're doing that, it can just seem like you may feel internally that you're a bit of a misfit or a black sheep, shall we say, and that you don't quite fit in, or I don't belong in this world, I'm an empath. And there's many different descriptions and the way people describe themselves when it comes to this similar feeling and how it can lead to the similar patterns of behaviour in each other who resonate with what I'm saying. Now, for me personally, I come up in a pretty, it was a poor household. There weren't much, and I even ended up in the children's homes in the care system. So it was tough for me to even fit in anyway. And then once that happens as well, you can imagine there's always hierarchy regardless of where you go in life, especially as a younger person growing up. We all know in school, we all know there's hierarchy there. The cool kids, the not so cool kids, the in-betweeners, there's group settings and group dynamics that happen via people's individualism, expression, and it's all down to hierarchy basically, and the way people view each other, you know, and through individual expression, and some people resonating with each other, and people trying to fit in by either projecting their own expressions or taking someone's expression as a projection, which I've spoken about before. And but self-abandonment for me started from there. It started from not feeling quite as worthy as others around me, not feeling that I quite fit in, not feeling like I could bring as much to the table as others could. And so I would behave in certain ways that would try and probably put me into scenarios for a period of time to see if I could find my people or try and fit in somewhere. And each and every single time I did this, I abandoned myself eventually. And I got to the age of around 16 or 17 when I fully understood this. So I was quite young when I understood this. By the time then, I had already had a child, had my own flat, been to prison twice, I'd really had to find my own way in the world pretty much with not much. So I started to pull myself away from groups and stuff like that. I'd normally just knock about with just one person or a small group, and I wouldn't be around people for too long. And if I was, it was more of like it was like a trauma bond basically with the others that I would surround myself with at the time, because it would be like I was almost, not almost, but I was in position of abandoning myself every time I would be in a circumstance around others that were allowing certain patterns of behaviour that I was displaying to come out of me. So it was through all these different aspects that I've come to the point I am now. As I'm 38 now, and obviously I went to prison when I was 18 as well. I got a life sentence. I got an IPP, and I got enrolled in a pilot project, treatment program, a therapeutic community where I learned a lot for 6 years living in therapy, and I've been free for 12 years now, in case it's the first time being here. And through all that time, I understood the process of different cognitive behavioural patterns within myself, understanding the thinking part, the feeling part of our brains, the cortex, the amygdala, how they work in tandem with each other, patterns of behaviour within myself, triggers, why triggers would arise, insecurities, how to manage them, how to navigate different challenges, how to understand and process my own emotions and feelings without projecting and expressing instead in a healthy way, and understanding the difference between reacting and responding, and also just learning how to communicate a lot better with things that were going on for me in my internal world. So when I culminated all my experiences, and in the 12 years that I've been free, because I've still experienced things, I've still came to the points in life in these 12 years of being free that I've abandoned myself. So I've learnt this, that the reason why I became isolated was because I wanted to stop abandoning myself. And I had to choose me when there was nobody else. And it got to the point where there wasn't anybody else. There was not a soul around. Not one person was there. I mean that, not one. And I had always carried quite a lot of others for years. And I had also abandoned myself for years by doing so, because they wasn't like the most appreciative people of what I was bringing to them. And I'd say it was like a 50-50 split between either they wasn't appreciative because they didn't care and that was coming from me and they didn't respect me, and I was just there as like a look down your nose kind of thing, because oh, woe is me under the tree, they'd look at me like, you know. And the other ones would be people who were not quite ready to accept what I had to offer, wasn't quite there at those stages yet. So it got to the point where I understood where everybody had then eventually just fizzled out, and I'd carried so much that I'd abandoned myself for everyone else that I neglected my own needs completely. And I was in a sorry state of affairs. I was, mate, I won't lie to you. In fact, I should try and insert some pictures of how I was looking at the time. I'd stopped training and exercising. I'd put on lots of weight. I was almost 24 stone in weight. If you don't know what that is in kilos, that's 148.7 was what I was weighing, and that's quite heavy, you know, in kilos. And so it's 2.2 pounds a kilo. So work that out. I don't know, over 300 pound basically. Really heavy, you know. I had a triple heart attack and everything, and the stress of the world, and I was abandoning myself so much that I almost gave up, you know. I really did almost give up. And I turned to alcohol. I did, for a period of time. At first it was a coping mechanism. First I started to drink external to being in Millfields project, which was what the place I was in. And I was alright for years. I was clear for years, and the only thing I did was smoke at the time. Up until my heart attack. I was 28 when I stopped smoking. 10 years I haven't smoked for now. And occasionally I would have a little brandy. It was like, it started off, it was just a little Hennessy here and there, a little mini Hennessy. It got to the point where I'd socialise and I'd get a quarter and a half and a bottle, and it just led up to, it was daily I was drinking like that eventually. And the kind of people that I was around couldn't care less whether I was abandoning myself or not by doing that kind of behaviour. Whereas real people in my life would have said, this needs to stop here, you know? And despite me and my efforts wanting to help others understand this, they wasn't quite ready at the time for that. And I think I hung around for a bit too long, to the point where it was to my detriment and I almost lost myself. And and people become quite envious of the way I was able to still navigate despite my circumstances not being great. So it came to the point where I learned that I had to start looking after myself. And my grandfather always taught me the saying, you can't look after anyone else until you look after yourself. And so I did. I chose me. I finally did choose me. And it took some time to get there. I mean, it's 11 minutes, 11 seconds up there. 11:11, if you know, you know. But it took me all that time and all those years to finally understand that, when there was no one around, and you really can't look after yourself until you look after anybody else. You can't look after anybody else until you look after yourself, should I say, rather. Sorry, I was just looking at my grandfather's picture there. And I realised how lonely that life can be. And someone of great influence in my life, who I hold an ever so dear to my heart, is a doctor. I won't mention their name because they might not want me to. And this person's retired now. And but I hold them ever so close to my heart. And they said to me when I was leaving a certain place in my life, they said to me, "You've done fantastic to get where you are, but I want to leave you with this. You're going to be very lonely." And I knew it meant something at the time, but I didn't quite know until this point in my life, where some people call it the awakening, the dark night of the soul, the midlife crisis, the breakdown. It was just where I knew that everything around me wasn't as it seemed. So I did. I chose me. And it all stemmed from this. I chose me, and I isolated myself. I thought, if people ain't giving to me and not liking me now, they ain't gonna like me anyway. And I learned that people are gonna talk regardless, because I'm at my highest stages in life, people were talking. At my lowest, people were talking. So I thought, fuck it, keep going. And I did. And every day I used myself as motivation. 1% better every day. And in fact, I had a little quote above my mirror, and it said, "Look better, feel better, and do better." Because one of those days I looked in the mirror and I was super overweight. I went, pack it in. I went, just fucking pack it in, Craig. You look at the fucking state of yourself. Now, I've been fit my whole life normally. And apart from these quite a few years, and I was a boxer. I was always into fitness as a kid, gym, bodybuilding, powerlifting, until I'd lost my way around a certain lifestyle, you know. And then I chose me. I went, I'm going to start looking better and feeling better and doing better. So I got my bench out. I started every day. I was on it. Did as much as I could. I thought, even if I start with 10, and I did. I started with 10 one day, and I was like, going for walks, and eventually I put in the work and it came to fruition. My body started sculpting itself a lot better, and the weight was dropping, and I was feeling fresher in myself. I had completely stopped drinking. I was sober, and that's how I learned that in isolation it can be addictive, because by myself I had no distractions of the world, and I stopped abandoning myself, and I started working on myself, because I understood it was my internal world that I needed to take care of. Doing this led me down a path of really grinding, but for a period of time, for about a year, I dismissed connection with others. So I decided to come to social media and try and find my tribe, as they say. And I have been doing so lately. 14:44 on the timer, by the way. I like doing that because numbers are a thing. These really sit with me, they do. But I started giving to others and sharing again. I've quickly come to learn that over a year or so of doing social media all the time now, like sharing my via poetry, I started sharing because it seems people like to read poetry to understand emotions and stuff like that. And I put a bit of a conscious effort on mine, and it comes naturally because I've written poetry to express myself, and I've always read and been natural. So all of these things ended up turning from being in my external group settings to my digital group settings too. Now I've come to learn that you can be in solitude and not isolated by yourself, and the way to do that is by still showing up in the world. So be introverted but extroverted too in circumstances, but not abandoning yourself and having boundaries. So it seems like a long process that I'm speaking about here, but it'll all come together once I've explained. And once I understood where I was, abandoning myself from my childhood experiences to the points where I'd behave in a certain way and I'd project rather than express myself, being in circles that seemed like they understood what I was doing and how I was behaving, what I was saying, but was misconstruing it and having their own spin on it. And kind of, we was all trauma bonding in that way, to being in positions in group settings where I've understood these things and I'm trying to process them in around people that may not respect me because of my position and how I was looking, not take care of myself, or people who weren't quite ready for it. To where I am now is where I've understood that the digital world that we live in, how the world's moved, and how that we can also do this here too, in a digital world, in digital group settings, and how a projection can be taken as expression can be taken as projection via a self-abandonment of you. Now it's like I learned this word, the grand falloon, a culmination of people who resonate with a shared commonality, a certain common interest or shared bond. And I'll just call it this: there's a lot of expression being turned into projection via people who are in a form of a camaraderie, like a grand falloon in a trauma bond, shall we say, who take aspects of what people are expressing and using it as projections rather than doing the work for themselves. Now, all of this together brings me to this. Self-abandonment stops when you understand all of these aspects. When you can understand how to be in solitude with yourself, but still show up in the world with boundaries and be clear with the way you speak and the way you hold yourself, and ensure that your expressions aren't looked at as projections, so you can put yourself in position for understanding another's pattern of behaviour, and also at the same time knowing when people are doing this and knowing when to take a step back from others and to look at yourself rather than worrying about everyone else. So the self-abandonment theory starts from understanding you need clear and concise boundaries for your own life. Always step back into solitude. Solitude is for introspection, not rumination. And then expression is for processing and not projecting the feelings. So once you have stopped self-abandoning yourself and you can be expressive with what you've understood, you can stop being isolated and then getting into trauma bonds in group settings and projecting parts of you inside that you haven't quite processed and worked on. So that's what I understand. So basically, I could be in a room or a setting with 7 other people, for example. I can express myself one way and 7 people can resonate and understand what I'm expressing. Because my experience leading up to then and my expression is totally different from all 7 of those people, all 7 of those are going to walk away and have their own example and own description and expression of that. And depending where they are, depends on whether they express it correctly or they project it onto another. Whereas it becomes almost like a Chinese whisper. And this can happen in any dynamic: family, friends, work, digital space, social media, anywhere in life. And it can be problematic if you don't understand this, that your expression will be taken another way by somebody else. And sometimes you have to choose yourself. So sometimes it is better to not cast your pearls among swine. And that's where that Bible term comes from. And it's not that you shouldn't share with all, it's that you only share with some. And that's by having boundaries for yourself and not abandoning you, and understanding isolation can lead to rumination, to projection, whereas solitude can lead you into introspection and expression and helps you understand boundaries better and helps you not self-abandon no more. And that's where I've come to the point today. And I don't know how you felt about that, but there's quite a lot of information there and quite a few topics. If you'd like me to break that all down, I can and I will. Leave in the comments if you got this far. And also give me a like, share this content with somebody else that you think that may need to hear it or can get something from it. And also don't forget to subscribe to me. This is Craig's Corner. My handle's at Craig.B.Collins 1111. You always see me. I normally got a hat on all the time. It's because I've got curly hair. And yeah, thanks for being here, man. But just remember, my expression isn't a form for projection for you. It's for you to be able to process and understand aspects of yourself and take what fits for you. Don't take what resonates and project it. Take what fits right for you and will work for you, yeah? It's important. Don't abandon yourself. Don't let somebody else be subjective to your way of thinking and to have a fixed mindset and to say this is correct. Because I'm learning every day, and so are you, and so are we all. We never stop learning, and we know fuck all. But when we do understand things, it's important to share with others who are experiencing what you've been through and they're trying to get to there too, you know, where you are, you know. And that's where I'm at today with what I'm speaking about. So, like I said, thanks for being here. I'm Craig, Mr. Craig's Corner. Thanks for being here. You know how we do. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good. You'll find me here on YouTube. All right, peeps? Take care. Have a good week.